What do you say to Jack Keane, Lindsey Graham, who's, of course, biggest cheerleader for more war, or Ben Hodges? They all say pretty much is going to be an Article 5 trigger. And so they claim that Putin wouldn't do that because he knows he can't handle it. What do you say to that argument?
I say that that is extremely risky. And I don't think the people who are making that bet have any understanding at all of either European history, the role of Russia in European security, and they don't know Mr. Putin and they don't know the Russians. And so they are basically pretends to know something and absolutely doesn't know a damn thing about it, because they're going to get us in real trouble. They have gotten us in trouble. By the way, other than Ukraine, where we got a fair warning from Moscow that if we went ahead with NATO enlargement, we were going to get a war in Ukraine. So that in that sense, it was provoked by us. We should have known that what we were going to get. Other than that, who else has Russia invaded? And who has China invaded in the last 40-some years? Who have we invaded? Lots of countries. You actually participated in a couple of invasions, I believe.
I did.
So you have more experience against scruffy insurgents than anybody. But that's not what the war in Ukraine is.
No.
It's not about scruffy insurgents. It is a conventional battle that resembles World War I in terms of its level of ferocity and the difficulty of securing any kind of advance. And here I would like to say, going back to your earlier questioning of Putin and nuclear doctrine, we have just issued a nuclear doctrine premised on fighting and winning a nuclear war. That is the central element of what the Biden administration's recently announced nuclear doctrine is aimed at. This, despite the fact that Ronald Reagan and Gorbachev together correctly said a nuclear war cannot be won and should never be fought. But we are planning to fight and win a nuclear war, according to the statement of our nuclear doctrine. That is very dangerous.
Gary, do you still have that Jeffrey Sachs video loaded up? Is that still available? I'd like to have your comment as we close up here today. Jeffrey Sachs was on the All In podcast along with a number of other people here recently, where he made an interesting comment about how we like to view things. And you can hear a part of this in stuff that Ted Cruz said a second ago, which is basically everybody's against us and we have to go out and defend ourselves here. But Professor Sachs had a different take on that. Watch this.
Almost all the time that we intervene, it's because we view this as a power situation for the U.S. So whether it's Ukraine or Syria or Libya or other places, even if we define it as defending something, believe me, it's not about defending something. It's about a perception of U.S. power and U.S. interest, and it's in objectives of U.S. global hegemony. And if we analyze the Ukraine conflict just even a little bit below the surface, this is not a conflict about Putin invading Ukraine. This is something a lot different that has to do with American power projection into the former Soviet Union. So it's completely different.
Now, you just made the comment that that's exactly how Russia and China view us. Is there any possibility at all that we can change the lens and see ourselves from the perspective of others, from the perspective that we would see them if they did the same actions with us, so that we can wake up and maybe make some decent policies choices? Do you even see a possibility of that?
Well, we're about to have an election. Do you see any evidence that either of the major candidates in that election is looking introspectively at us and connecting our actions with the effects they provoke on the part of others? I don't. So the answer to your question is yes, that's something we absolutely should do. We would benefit greatly by becoming realistic, by applying empathy to those we consider to be our adversaries, not sympathizing with them, not agreeing with them, but understanding why they're doing what they're doing and where they're coming from, and therefore how to persuade them not to do it, which is the task of diplomacy. The diplomacy is about convincing people, especially adversaries, that they should see things the way we see them, that they should regard doing what we see as in our interest as also in their interest, and in fact, more in their interest than what they have previously been doing. You can't do that if you don't understand yourself from their perspective, and you don't understand them in terms of their motivations. This is, going back to Sun Tzu, the great Chinese theoretician of war. He said, "Zhu ji zhi bi," understand yourself, understand the other, and you will never be defeated. And that is still true, but we don't try.
Well, I'd love to be able to argue with you on that one, but I don't see any path to that, and certainly neither of the major candidates, with the possible exception of Trump and the Russia-Ukraine situation, at least has some interest in finding a negotiated settlement. But other areas, it's not so clear that that's the path, or that he would actually do it if he got into office. We'll find out whether that comes to pass or not. But
Ukraine needs peace. Ukraine needs peace. So do we. We know that we have to have a peaceful international environment to fix all of the problems we've allowed to accumulate at home. And that means collapsing infrastructure, declining educational standards. It means levels of interference by the government with privacy and the rights of the citizens that ignore the First Amendment, the Fourth Amendment, and so forth. In order to fix these, we need a peaceful international environment. Step one ought to be bringing peace to Ukraine. And we should be backing the Ukrainians as much as we can in trying to salvage as much from this terrible situation as they can. But I will say there is no instance I know of where people have won back at the negotiating table what they've lost on the battlefield.
Yeah.
The Ukrainians have to be realistic. I've never seen that.